Hey guys, what is up? It is the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys another vlog, and we gotta talk about the Atlanta Hawks because I had some confidence in this team to start the year. I did. I was like, you know what? I'm like, they started off well, but they are now 9-10, and unlike the Indiana Pacers, their offense is not good enough to make up for their defensive woes. I'm growing very concerned with Trae Young. It's amazing to me that Tyrese Halliburton over the past 2 years has become a better player than Trae Young. And Trae Young is making 40 bands a year plus. And it's gotten so bad to the point that I'm kind of like, would anybody even trade for Trae Young? You know what I'm saying? Like, even the teams that could use a Trae Young, like the Miami Heat, the New Orleans Pelicans, the Brooklyn Nets, all these teams that could maybe use a Trae Young have no incentive to trade for him. Because point guards are everywhere. I mean, the Nets have Spencer Dinwiddie. The Pelicans have CJ McCollum playing point guard, but he's actually doing it relatively well. So that leaves the Miami Heat. And if you're the Miami Heat, what the fuck are you going to offer the Atlanta Hawks for Trae Young? Kyle Lowry and Jaime Jaquez Jr.? You know what I'm saying? Like, it just... Maybe you could get away with like Tyler Hero and something else, but if I'm Miami, it's like Tyler Hero's playing out of his mind right now. Why would I trade Tyler Hero for Trae Young? And honestly, like, I know there's Atlanta Hawks fans that think Trae Young is good, but the fact of the matter is Trae Young came into the draft, right, as the guy that we all predicted to be the next Stephen Curry. And as far as I'm concerned, the closest thing to Stephen Curry in the NBA right now is Damian Lillard. But Trae Young was kind of touted as that guy, right? Coming out of Oklahoma, a lot of people were like, Trae Young's the next Steph Curry. And I could see why people were saying that. But the fact of the matter is, Trae Young has now been in the NBA for 5 years. He's working on his 6th currently this year. And he's never once, actually, I can't say that. He's only one time in his entire career shot above 37% from 3. And that was, I believe, his 3rd or 4th year in the NBA that he did that. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it was his 4th year in the NBA. He shot 46% from the field, 38% from 3. And I'm like, all right, he's starting to show me something, right? He shot 46% from the field, 38% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line that year on 28 and basically 10. But the problem is now he's become an efficiency nightmare. And he's averaging 4 turnovers a game. I'm to the point now where I put Trae Young in the same category as Russell Westbrook, where, like, his numbers are good by, like, 2003 standards. You know what I'm saying? Like, if the NBA was still in 2001, 2003, in that era, Trae Young's a perennial all-star, okay? But we're not in that era of the NBA anymore. You can put up 27 and 10, that's fine, but you can't do it on 40% from the field and 35% from 3. You know what I'm saying? And average 4 turnovers a game. Now, I will say this, Trae Young is averaging a career high in steals at the current point in time, and they are league-wide number 1 in steals, but they're still... what are they, 20, as a team, they are currently, I think, 28th. Yeah, no, they're 26th out of 30 teams in defensive rating. This team honestly couldn't stop a stop sign in the paint. Like, they're fine offensively, right? It's kind of wild to me that they're still 20th in assists because they have DeJounte Murray and Trae Young on their team, and somehow are still not in the top 10 in assists. That's wild to me, especially when Trae Young is 2nd in the league in assists. But when you look at their defensive numbers, they're bad. I mean, 2-point percentage-wise in the NBA, they are dead last, meaning teams shoot the highest percentage in the paint against the Atlanta Hawks. So if you're a guy who likes to play FanDuel parlays, if Giannis is playing against the Atlanta Hawks, you should expect him to score like 50. They're just in field goal percentage. They're allowing teams to shoot 50% from the field, which is like 28th out of 30 teams. In field goals, they're allowing teams to make, it's 45 and a half, well, 45.8, almost 46. That's league ranked 28th. They're pretty much in the bottom half of the league, or the very bottom of the league when it comes to defense. And it's crazy because in 2-pointers attempted, they're only allowing teams to shoot, 54 2-pointers a game, and that's league ranked for 17th, meaning they're one of the better teams when it comes to allowing teams to shoot 2-pointers, but the problem is the ones that they give up, they're allowing them to kill them on them. They're dead last in the NBA in opponent 2-point percentage. So I look at this team and I think to myself, there's not a lot they can do. Like, literally, they score 123.2 points per game and give up 122.8. So they basically score 123 points per game, but give up 123 points per game. And this is not sustainable. They're stuck with Trae Young for another 4 years. And honestly, even if they were to try to blow this up and even trade Trae Young and let DeJounte Murray take over point guard duties, right, and maybe try to get yourself a Paul George or even a CJ McCollum or a Tyler Hero or a Zach LaVine, even if you were to try to go after those players, it's kind of like, well, do they really want to take on Trae Young? Like, the only team out of all of them that I mentioned that would maybe be willing to take on Trae Young is the Chicago Bulls and the Miami Heat. Those are the only two teams I could think of that would maybe be willing to take on Trae Young's contract with how shitty he is efficiency-wise. And even Miami, like I said, it's like Tyler Hero's kind of balling. You know what I'm saying? So, like, do you really want to give up Tyler Hero for Trae Young? Because that's what you're going to have to give up. And if you look at a team like, what was the other one? Miami and... Chicago. If you're Chicago, it's like, yeah, you get Trae Young, you give up Zach LaVine, but, then you got to try to build something around Trae Young, and, then you're in the same fucking situation that the Hawks were in. So, it's wild to me because Trae Young is having one of those careers where I kind of feel like once his extension is over, he's going to be a guy that I think falls from grace relatively quickly if he doesn't become a more efficient shooter. Because Trae Young is one of those guys where he's like James Harden, where like he has to be the system. And it like same thing with like Luka Doncic even. These are all guys that basically have to be the system on the teams that they're on. And if they were ever forced to defer to somebody else, I simply don't think they would be anywhere near as good as they are. If Trae Young was limited to, like, instead of 20 shots a game, let's say he only gets 10 or 11 and he's shooting like shit, Trae Young's out the fucking league. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you're averaging 4 turnovers a game. So, and you can't defend anybody. We saw what happened to Isaiah Thomas. You know what I'm saying? Isaiah Thomas was a guy that had damn near an MVP year for the Boston Celtics, but he's a guy that, he's not very tall, not a very good defender, and we see how far that gets you in the NBA, you know what I'm saying? In the NBA, if you have absolutely no ability to stop anybody, which Trae Young really doesn't, he's in that same boat with Isaiah Thomas, where it's like, you're short, you're not very good at staying in front of people, you're not tall, you're not heavy, you know what I'm saying? You don't have any way of staying in front of somebody, you're going to find yourself on the outside looking in pretty fast, and I feel like, unfortunately, that's the type of career Trae Young is going for. Once his extension is over with the Atlanta Hawks, which I feel like he's not even going to play out with the Atlanta Hawks, he's a guy that I feel like is going to maybe, I don't know if he's going to struggle to get a roster spot, but he's going to struggle to see playing time. And, obviously I'm looking very far ahead, but, this team is not capable of doing what the Indiana Pacers are doing. And they're a very similar team to the Indiana Pacers. They're 4th in pace. They're 3rd in offensive rating out of all 30 teams. But when it comes to defense, they fucking suck. And, they got guys on their team that have been bright spots. Onyeka Okongwu has been a bright spot. Jalen Johnson's been pretty good, but AJ Griffin's playing like shit this year. Wesley Matthews is playing like shit this year. Like, they have 8 guys that play and 8 guys that pretty much ride the fucking bench, and that's pretty much it. This team needs better bench play. They honestly, if there's a team that should trade for Gordon Hayward too, it's probably the Atlanta Hawks. Like, if there's a team that should trade for Ben Simmons, it's probably the Atlanta Hawks. You know what I'm saying? Like, they need something. They either need defense or bench production. And, if they can get that from some team that's not playing well this year, or a team that's looking to get off of a bad contract, the Atlanta Hawks are probably the team to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you can somehow finesse Gordon Hayward away from the Charlotte Hornets because they're playing like shit and LaMelo Ball's injured now, shocker. It's just like, they need some type of bench production over here. Maybe if the Clippers decide to blow it up because they're not playing well, maybe you go after Norman Powell. They need bench production. They need defense. They need rebounding. Shooting is fine, to be honest with you. Their three-point shooting's fine, but this team, it's just like it sucks because I'm starting to get into the mindset of that. So long as Trae Young is on this basketball team, they're not going to be good. It's very rare that like a team has a player on it that scores almost 30 a game and is second in the NBA in assists, and you're right now looking at a fucking play-in spot. So I understand the East is better than it used to be, but Atlanta could really benefit from some depth. They could really benefit from some defense. If Toronto tries to blow it up this season, which they probably will, they're 9-11. Maybe you try to finesse OG Anunoby away from them. Maybe you try to finesse Pascal Siakam away from them for something. Maybe Pascal Siakam for Trae Young is something Toronto would be desperate enough to do if Pascal Siakam comes out and says, fuck no, I'm not re-signing. But it's just not looking good. They're not a good screening. Honestly, Clint Capella's not going to step out and defend a three. When you get into the dog days of the playoffs, Clint Capella's not exactly the center you want on your roster to try and step out there and defend the three. That's part of the reason they have Onyeka Okongwu, or at least drafted him. But there's a lot of problems with this team. I'm going to call it what it is. The Atlanta Hawks have a lot of problems, and I'm slowly starting to lose faith in them. I didn't really have much faith in them last year, but the idea that they're starting off the season this bad, I'm to a point now where I'm just like, yeah, you know what? I tried to watch an Atlanta Hawks game the other night. I'm not impressed with DeAndre Hunter. I'm just not. I'm sorry. I know he's still young. He's 26 years old. But I'm not impressed with DeAndre Hunter. I kind of think he needs a change of scenery. And I kind of think he's a little bit overrated in a way for I feel like people make him out to be a better defender than he is, or even just a better player than he actually is. This team, they have DeJounte Murray, who's like a bona fide number 2, but your number 1 is so inefficient that you really need a Paul George, or you really need a Kawhi Leonard, or a Pascal Siakam, something of the sort, and I don't know if they're going to get it. Even though Pascal Siakam is not ideal for them, right? Pascal Siakam's a guy you could play at the 3. You know what I'm saying? He's a guy that you could go out there. He's going to play defense. He's going to get you 20 a game. He's going to rebound. He's going to dish some assists, right? It's kind of what they need. They need a Swiss Army knife type player almost that can do a little bit of everything. Even if they trade for Jeremy Grant from the Portland Trailblazers, right, and find some way to pull that off. This is just a team that I don't have a lot of faith in. And I'm kind of the mindset now that so long as Trae Young is there and they're trying to build around Trae Young and they don't put any emphasis really on defense, this is a team that's going to continue to either be a play-in team or a team that's just outside of the play-in. I don't think they're bad enough to be a bottom tier team in the NBA, which honestly at this point I'm starting to think maybe they should consider tanking, just because it would give them a chance to maybe get a decent draft pick. But I don't know really what to think about Atlanta. All I know is I don't have much faith for them making the playoffs, especially when the Knicks are better, the Pacers are better, right? There's teams that are just playing better. The Milwaukee Bucks are going to be there. The Celtics are going to be there. Orlando's looking pretty good. They're a team that could be there. Granted, Orlando's going to get battle tested in the next month or so, in the next couple weeks here. But it's just the idea. We've seen stagnation finally out of the Atlanta Hawks. If this is a team that can't win 45 fucking games, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, this is a team that in the early 2000s, perennial playoff team. To be honest with you, in the early 2000s, 42 wins is enough to get you in the fucking playoffs. But nowadays, you need to be looking at 45, 47 wins, and this is a team that I just don't think is capable of doing that. And I really don't know what else they can really do to try and turn this team into that, because Trae Young eats up such a significant portion of their salary cap. There's an argument to be made that Trae Young is overpaid. And I know there's going to be Atlanta Hawks fans that are like, you don't know what you're talking about. But bro, Watching Trae Young play basketball with his fucking shot selection and shit makes me want to punch a baby, okay? Like, I watch him shoot shots, I'm like, bro, why are you shooting that shot? You know what I'm saying? Like, he takes at least 4 or 5 shots a game where I'm like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? You know, like, I get that Atlanta needs him to take a shit ton of shots. I understand that in order for them to be competitive, he needs to take 20 shots a game, but his efficiency would maybe be better if he didn't take such shitty jump shots. You know, just because Steph Curry and Damian Lillard shoot shots from half court and LeBron does it occasionally doesn't mean that you need to. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like Trae Young sometimes gets into that habit where I think he thinks he's better than he is. And you know what? Maybe Trae Young really does have the ability to be the guy he thinks he is, but we have not seen it in 2 years now, 2 or 3 years. And I just think to myself, like, if he would just stop shooting shots from like 35, 40 feet and just move it in a little bit, let the offense come to him a little bit, move it around. Like, you have DeJounte Murray. You know what I'm saying? You wanted to play with him. You know what I'm saying? Let DeJounte Murray bring the ball up. Do some off-ball shit. Learn to, you know, shoot threes off the dribble and, you know, become an off-ball shooter. We haven't seen that out of Trae Young. And part of me, like, as well, gets irritated with Quinn Snyder because I'm like, dude, they don't play Trae Young that way. For whatever reason, they don't. I'm like, and if they do, it's very half-assed. And I think to myself, if Trae Young is really to be regarded as the next Steph Curry or next Damian Lillard, right, or any of those two, after those guys retire, he needs to incorporate that into his game. He needs to move off ball, get open, start, you know, off-ball screens need to be set for him so he can get open on the three-point line. And I feel like that would help his efficiency too. It's like, instead of shooting these contested fucking threes or shooting threes from damn near the fucking parking lot, you know, he puts quarters in the parking meter and shoots jump shots from the sidewalk. I'm like, if you would stop taking those fucking jump shots and take maybe realistic shots, right? Maybe your efficiency would be better. So, I don't know, man. Part of me thinks it's the coach. Part of me thinks it's the player. I really don't know. But it's just the idea, like, there's so much. I really think Atlanta could be a better team than they actually are, especially on the defensive end. You know, they have DeAndre Hunter, they have DeJounte Murray, they have Jalen Johnson, Onyeka Okongwu. Like, it's not like this team doesn't have guys that aren't capable of playing defense, but they're fucking bad at it. So, I don't know, man. You know what? At the end of the day, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. But I'm slowly, like, I'm to a point now where I've given up on the Atlanta Hawks Trae Young experiment because it's not working. I almost think maybe not Mike D'Antoni. But like, I'm thinking like maybe Mike D'Antoni as a head coach is what they need to do, or just something, man. Somebody needs to come in here and either play Trae Young differently, right? And try to work out his issues rather than concede to him, because that's what it seems like every coach they get is doing, just conceding to Trae Young rather than trying to help him or trying to get him to improve on his game. It seems like they're just conceding to him and letting him do what he wants, and it's making him look like, you know, Russell Westbrook 2.0 when he fucking does it. So, I don't know, man. The Atlanta Hawks are a mess, and I've lost faith. So tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. Like, helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more on the Fast Break Report. And out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.